Pledge of Allegiance.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
JD, if you'll do the introduction of guests, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Despite the having a room full at COVID spacing, we only have a couple of guests with us today. Of course, Laura McIver's here with Quail Forever. Thank you for being here, Laura. And a guy who needs no introduction. His name is on the building, Mr. John Grondike over there. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you, JD. Also, at this time, we'd like to do the presentation of awards. JD Strong.
Testing. Are we on? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this morning we got a couple of employees that have been with us at least 20 years. We'll start with Kurt Kuklinski, who's our research supervisor in Wildlife Division. Started December 2000 as a fisheries biologist in the Fisheries Research Lab down in Norman. He was promoted to Fisheries Research Supervisor in 2014, and then most recently, this past July, promoted to Research Supervisor in the Wildlife Division. He's an avid hunter, actively engages in the R3 campaign, taking his two young sons, their friend, his 7-year-old father on numerous hunting excursions, including a annual week-long deer hunt on Black Kettle National Grasslands. He's a self-proclaimed transplanted cheesehead from Wisconsin, and who moved to Oklahoma in December of '98 to enter grad school at OU. Got his master's in zoology in 2001, has happily lived here ever since. He attended college, the College of Saints Scholastica, Duluth, Minnesota. Got his BH in biology on a hockey scholarship. Not a very popular scholarship down this way, but certainly in Duluth, Minnesota. So today we want to celebrate 20 years of outstanding service, Kurt Kuklinski from Wildlife Division. Come get it, Kurt.
Just briefly, I'd just like to thank everybody for the support. I really appreciate the fact that we base some of our management on science, and we allow science and the research side of things to allow us to come to decisions that we do as far as managing our fish and game. So that's not possible without your support, and certainly Ken and Barry over the years, and now Bill and Russ. It's been very much appreciated, so thank you.
Thanks, Kurt. Sometimes a little bit of political science has to get involved in the decision too, but the biological science is always the best. Last but certainly not least, we have Todd Craighead, who started with us in 1995 as an I&E specialist 25 years ago as the regulations coordinator. Back then there were 4 regulation books and press checks for each one of them. Today, Todd, of course, serves as producer and host of Outdoor Oklahoma. He's the longest standing host in Outdoor Oklahoma history, serving as host or co-host for at least 18 years. He travels anywhere in the state with Todd, and it's guaranteed he will be recognized and approached with something like, "Hey, Todd, I really enjoy the show. Keep up the great work." Todd has a funny story from many years ago when a woman approached him and said, "I wake up with you every Sunday morning." Todd's daughter, who was very young at the time, was very confused about how Todd could possibly wake up with that woman every Sunday morning. But he's mentored as many new hunters as anyone in the agency, including annual trips to Michigan with special needs kids. He's a frequent speaker all around the state at conventions, banquets, community organizations, etc., and is without question a great ambassador for this agency. He comes with a long line of conservationists, comes from a long line of conservationists, including his dad, who is a forester, and uncles who are well-known biologists. He's an avid Jeep enthusiast, and Todd would probably say some of his bigger accomplishments are his Jeep gracing the cover of Jeeping magazine, calendar, or Facebook page. He's spent a lot of time way up in the Rocky Mountains, 2 miles high, in fact, not just elk hunting, but also where he started his career working for the Forest Service. Blake Podasky said it best when he said, Todd is a kind, friendly person and would give you the shirt off his back. This is verified by the strong and loyal group of friends he has around him. This is also held true in his professional career, as he is always there to help others at work, and one that makes the family bond even stronger here at Department of Wildlife. So congrats on 25 years of service, Todd. Mike is yours.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Commissioner, and thank you, JD. It has been a pleasure, definitely, for 25 years, a quarter of a century. Sometimes it's sobering to think about that you've been in one place all that time, but I can't imagine doing anything else. I'd like to say here's to another 25, but I'm no Johnny Hurd, so I probably won't stick around another 25, but it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
This time, of consideration, vote to approve, amend, reject, or take other action on the minutes, December 7th meeting. A motion? Second? Second. Further discussion? There being none, take roll.
Commissioner Barwick. Commissioner Hughes. Commissioner Gaddis. Commissioner Zelf. Commissioner Dillingham. Commissioner Holder. Commissioner Mabry.
Aye. Next item on the agenda is the director's report. JD?
Thank you, sir. I'll first see if Corey has anything to cover. You want me to just kind of cover the summary real quick? Yeah, okay. That's what I was thinking. Not a lot of activity yet, but that will be changing very rapidly very soon. So I'll start with pointing out in your packet you have a federal report there from Brittany Preston, as we always have. You can see there's some of the highlights, or maybe should say some of the lowlights of what's been happening in Washington, D.C. lately. But of course, election and transition is really kind of all the focus right now. President Trump did sign the bipartisan funding conservation grants that have come through the North American Wetlands Conservation Act, which passed Congress, and also reauthorized the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation Act. We did have omnibus appropriations get through, including some additional COVID-19 stimulus in that package. Importantly for us, in the omnibus package, they included reauthorization of the Water Resources Development Act, which was going to be a standalone piece of legislation, but they ultimately, just to get it sort of through this Congress, rolled it into the Omnibus Appropriations Act, and it includes language that we sought to hopefully get some additional water appropriated out of Tenkiller Lake to support the fishery downstream in the lower Illinois River. You probably have known that we've struggled for probably Barry's entire career on maintaining that fishery below Tenkiller, just because the lake was fully appropriated to other water users, and so there was no really water set aside to provide for that fishery, including a trout fishery, which struggles the most, especially during the summer months if there's low flow. So we got some language in there authorizing the Corps to hopefully develop some water from the inactive pool to set aside for the downstream fishery. I'm not aware that it's ever been done before, so I'm sure it's gonna be real easy to get the Corps to play along with us as we try to figure out how to put this language in action. But at least we've got a strong congressional statement of support for the fishery downstream of 10 Killer Lake that we can hopefully work with. So if there's ever been any question about whether having Brittany working for us part-time benefits us, that's another example of something she was able to work really closely with our delegation and ultimately got Senator Inhofe to slip that language in that bill before it passed. So I think the rest of her summary just sort of talks about stimulus package and some of the other chaotic things that are happening in DC as a result of the attempt to transfer power to a new administration. So I'll let you read that at your leisure if you haven't heard enough about it on the news lately or on social media, assuming there is going to be any social media left. But legislatively, of course, we're just 2-3 weeks away from legislature kicking into high gear, kicking off the session. So there has been quite a bit of activity behind the scenes in the ramp up to that. On the Senate side, our Ag and Wildlife Committee will continue to be chaired by Senator Murdoch and vice chaired by Senator Peterson. And you can see in the report a list of all the other, there are some new members on the committee, just by virtue of the fact that there's some new members in the Senate. So well, there's a few new members, but we have the same leadership. On the House side, the House Wildlife Committee will now be chaired by Representative Ty Burns and vice chaired by newly elected Representative Eddie Dempsey. And so there's a link to that you can click to see the makeup of that committee as well. So the bill requests are in. We're still waiting to see what final language looks like in these bills that have been requested. We should be able to get a feel for that after the bill filing deadline, which is January 21st. So all we know right now is sort of generally whether that somebody has filed maybe a wildlife related bill, a Title 29 bill, but we don't know what it's going to do. So far, the Senate has requested over 1,600 bills, and the House requested 2,100 bills and 41 joint resolutions. So Corey's going to be busy sorting through a lot of bills and when all that language drops. You can see there, update on the human dimensions side. Got a 25% response rate on the online survey for that was done. And in fact, you're still doing some follow-up on that survey, I believe. Basically asking hunters if we were to make some changes to the controlled hunt application process, especially those raffle hunt opportunities. You know, what would they be willing to pay for some of these new raffle hunt opportunities that we're bringing online, that sort of thing. So that's going to help inform come this spring when we roll out our controlled hunt application process, all these new raffle hunts that Wade Free, Nels, and a bunch of others have been pulling together, both from the hunting side, the fishing side, as well as from the non-hunting and fishing side, like a bear research trip, which we'll hope will be a popular raffle, that kind of thing. So looking forward to the results of that survey. You can see there, fish stockings continue in the fisheries division. I guess I'll also jump back on the human dimension side that, you know, the public comment form and so forth for the rule change proposals now closed, but so we'll be coming to you at the March commission meeting to make decisions on all the rule change proposals. Of course, we'll want to get together ahead of that, probably with the rules committee, take a look at all the online comments, the in-person comments. There were some people that showed up at the public hearing here at the department and see what we need to do. Scanning the rest of those, you see lots of research projects going on in fisheries, habitat assessment conducted on the Upper Illinois River, ongoing angler survey Lake Texoma is completed. I think that was a joint survey opportunity between us and Texas Parks and Wildlife, surveying anglers at Texoma, boating access projects, lake renovation projects, completed on the grant packages, at least on Atoka, Blue Stem, Bixoma, Chap Beaver, and Stroud Reservoir. Starting to lose my voice already, wildly. Promise you I'm through the COVID quarantine period though, so. Bear with me. I&E division. We've had a number of very popular virtual hunting and fishing courses conducted during the last couple of months, really. So that's been a great thing that Casey Harriet and Skylar St. Eves have been able to pull together. There'll be, because of the popularity of those, there'll be some additional courses online for 2021. Would that flip the page on me real quick? Sorry. The number of I&E employees also attended a Brant Marketing Summit that gave us insights into what's being called the COVID cohort. We talked about it before, but 2020 was an unprecedented recruitment year for us, getting people outdoors and into hunting and fishing. And so some people are referring to that as the COVID cohort. And I know I&E's been working diligently on operation retention. So in other words, if we saw roughly a 25% increase in license sales 2020 over 2019, how are we going to capture as big a percentage of that group as possible and keep them engaged in hunting and fishing? So lots of challenges to come, but I know staff is stepping up and looking forward to it. I will, in the interest of saving what's left of my voice, let you see what else is going on there. The point of the 4 pages of director's report there is to see that there is a ton of activity going on, lots of maintenance going on the WMAs, as people both in fisheries, wildlife, and law enforcement have had an unprecedented year of dealing with a public surge on our hunting and fishing areas across the state. So I could just wrap it all up into one, I would say kudos to all of our employees for an unprecedented year in 2020 of folks getting outdoors, experiencing hunting, fishing, and other outdoor activities, being able to manage those crowds, continue to try to maintain and keep up these now well-used properties over the course of 2020, as well as keep everybody safe and in line with the laws and regulations. So kudos to everyone, and thank you for an amazing 2020. Just be happy to yield for any questions you may have. Yes, sir.
What happened?
I'm not sure if we've had an increase. I guess, we've had some reports of vandalism out there, but I'm not sure it increased more than it has before. I'm kind of looking at Bill.
Well, I know about Mr. WMA, and was there several others that with
So, yeah, I'm not sure increase, just occasionally that crap kind of happens, unfortunately. People don't want to take it. I would add, if you don't mind, real quick before we move on, I didn't get it in time to really slip it into the written report, but I'll email it to you for your benefit later. But just some highlights of 2020 and how we did on license sales as just a barometer of what really was happening out there. We saw a 27% increase in all of our non-lifetime licenses, 20% increase in non-residents, and 28% increase in resident licenses. revenue. We're up over 11 million in sales on the non-resident side and 12 million in sales on the resident side. So, or not up over, but we had over 11 million in sales, non-residents, and over 12 million in sales on residents, and that's not counting lifetimes. Lifetimes, overall, we saw a 36% increase in lifetime license sales this year, 2020 over 2019. Lifetime fishing up 67%, senior fishing up 47%. Online transactions were up 145%. And that's, of course, due to two things. We have the relatively new rollout of our new online system and app. Of course, we're going in our third year of that now, but obviously not being able to go do a lot of transactions in person drove a lot of people to our online portal too. So that was an incredible thing. Resident fishing licenses were up 49% over 2019. In the month of May alone, we more than doubled our license revenue on resident fishing and on non-resident fishing. We doubled our license revenue in May. So pretty incredible increases in a lot of areas. Resident hunting licenses are up 15%, 2020 over 2019. Just looking at some of our more recent our September transactions were up 60%, and our December resident hunting license sales were up 68%. Probably a significant amount of that driven by our efforts, I&E's efforts to really get people out to take advantage of the holiday antlerless season this year over last year. So the only place we really saw a decrease was annual non-resident hunting licenses. And, that's because there's a lot of travel restrictions out there, right, still. And so April, we really took a downturn in 30% on April turkey season, because that was when COVID had first really kind of landed and people were afraid to travel. So we took a big hit there, but we sort of made up for it in the increase in resident license sales to boot. So just scanning some of these, the holiday antlerless sales were up 34% for residents, 49% increase just in the month of December alone. So that was a big one. We saw an increase in deer gun licenses of 16% for residents, 13% for non-residents. Muzzle loader was up 31% for non-residents, 8% for residents. Deer archery licenses were up 28% for non-residents, 15% for residents. So just incredible numbers out there. And our license sales across the board. I could go on and on, but I'll get you that summary of the year end. And of course, we've got a few more days left until deer season closes, and we'll have some numbers. In fact, you have some updated numbers probably, don't you? What's the latest harvest look like?
Don't mind, I'm gonna step up here because I think this is kind of a very exciting time for us. As of yesterday, we're sitting at 124,873 harvested. That's an all-time record for the state of Oklahoma. So, last year's harvest was 106,000.
And we were celebrating that.
I just want to point out that, through, I got to give credit, obviously, the management staff out there and law enforcement for protection, but I&E did a good job promoting the antlerless. We're sitting at 42%, which is great.
Yes,
Last
great.
year, when I came to y'all with trying to increase doe days and whatnot, we were hovering around 35% antlerless harvest. So we're sitting at 42 right now, and 4 more days to go.
And that's a hard needle to move, especially in 1 year.
It is.
Wow.
So,
Kudos.
it takes everybody from landowners giving access, that's huge, to our hunters hearing the message and then actually going out there and doing it. And it appears that has been working. Obviously, the commission and the direction they've been given, and just trust in staff, that do our jobs. And this is just a great time. I'm kind of overexcited about it. All-time record high for the state of Oklahoma and deer. That's good stuff. So thank you for allowing me to.
Thank you for the latest. Yeah, great work, everybody. That's incredible. Because I think, even maybe back in November, you reported antlerless harvest when we were still in gun season, and it was still in the upper 30%. So people really took off the rest of archery season and holiday antlerless season. That's awesome.
Thank you, gentlemen, for that information. Very interesting. Really some good numbers this year. Hopefully they'll hang on in 2021. So, next item on the agenda is a presentation, November 30th financial statement by Amanda Storr. Amanda?
So just point it at you. Good morning, Commissioner and Mr. Strong. I have the financial reports for you today.
Put that mic down closer.
Okay.
to mine. Thanks.
All right. So this is for the period to November 30th, 2020. I have the combined balance sheet of all fund types. The total for November 30th, 2020 is $467,060,705 for liabilities and fund balance, with liabilities of $21,204,828 compared to last year of $423,736,806. Next is the combined balance sheets for the trust funds. Our expendable trust fund balance is $28,173,244 for November 30th. Non-expendable trust is $93,995,423. Our pension trust is $130,551,930. Our DC trust is $4,644,310 for a total of $257,364,907, compared with a balance of $234,924,038 last year. On our combined statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for the period, our total revenue is $25,463,058. Our total expenditures is $1,435,637 for a fund balance of $50,430,912, which is an increase of 40.39% over last year. Our combined statement of revenue, expenditures, and changes in fund balance of trust funds for the period, we have a total of $17,647,705 in operating revenues, and that brings our total fund balance to $229,191,663 compared to last year, $215,529,551. We also have contributions of $6,000 that you'll see at the back of your packet. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, anybody? Not would ask for a motion to approve. So moved. Second? Further discussion? There being none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Barwick? Aye. Commissioner Gaddis? Aye. Commissioner Zelf? Aye. Commissioner Dillingham? Aye. Commissioner
Aye. Next item on the agenda is the budget add-on. Amanda?
Today, I bring to you a mid-year add-on request of a total of $2,818,110 for monetary budget increases and $385,000 budget-only increase for increase in grant fees for a total of $3,203,110.
Motion second, discussion? Seeing none, call roll.
Question? Yes. So, just stepping back, we, last May, when we were putting together the budget for this fiscal year, we were looking at that time at some pretty bad performance in the stock market, as most people realized, and so that it was affecting our lifetime license trust, and we were a little anxious about the ability to fully budget the budget that was coming up through the divisions, including looking at the ability to continue to adjust salaries for another year. So we opted at that time to kind of wait and see what the stock market might do. And of course, it's done well since then. And you just saw, I think there's over $12 million in the expendable portion of the lifetime trust now. We always keep at least a $5 million buffer in there to protect against any stock market crashes. So more than enough really to cover the $3 million being requested now to add back in. And so we're adding back in those projects that the divisions brought to us as we were putting together. And while we would have loved to have brought to you for at the beginning of the fiscal year an adjustment in employee salaries, just given the lag behind where our employee salaries are relative to the market, the midpoint of the market, which is kind of the market average for those positions, we, again, just didn't feel like we could afford to make that effective July 1. So this does include a proposal to adjust those 3% across the board for the last half of this fiscal year. And of course, a salary adjustment would continue. So total cost of that is $300,000 out of this over $3 million that's being requested for the mid-year. And then we also talked with the Finance Committee this morning about our desire to bring to you for FY22 consideration a more detailed proposal that is maybe more precise, strategic, that sort of thing. But this would at least allow us to not continue to fall behind where the market is on salaries.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
What is the annualized all employees, including retirees?
So annualized, it'd be 600,000.
Yes, and the COLA was funded in a different budget item, so that wouldn't be for retirees. That is just current employees.
Yeah, so there's a separate line item in this mid-year budget proposal, $130,000 to finish the cost of living adjustment for our retirees, which the commission approved a year and a half ago.
Yes, it was funded over 2 fiscal years.
It was supposed to be spread over 2 fiscal years. So we needed $130,000 to complete that. So that's a separate budget item.
I'll speak to this. Is this on? Okay. You know, thank you for that as well. There's no doubt, one, as we've just seen, it's been a good year, but a very, very difficult year. And our staff have done an amazing job in managing that. It's my experience and opinion that, it's always a hard balance when you look at, adequately funding to market your employee cost and to be able to attract and retain good talent, which we have and we want to properly reward the good job done, and finding that balance between, a forever salary increase versus bonuses. And I know it's a little bit harder when you're in public sector versus private on how you can manage that. I'd like to learn more about that as we move forward. But one of the things we addressed in our meeting last month when we heard the audit report on our pension, we had about a $16 million underfunded liability, and we were going to need to increase our funding contributions from 2.3 to 2.7 million, and that was due to the 2% add-on COLA at that time. So is this going to compound that, or is that that 2-year funding, of which this would equate to 130,000, take care of that 2%.
It did take care of the 2%. We already had the remainder of that in our budget initially to fund the COLA. This was the difference between what we budgeted and what they projected after our budget was approved. So the 130 fully funds that, what he discussed last month.
Then the 600 annualized, have we projected an impact on that throughout retirement and full cost? Is that full cost or is that salary only?
That's full cost.
Full cost, salary, taxes, and increased retirement contributions.
Okay,
on the
thank you
employees.
very much.
Sure. Thank you. Good questions.
Further questions? Being so, please call roll.
Commissioner Barwick? Aye. Commissioner Gaddis? Aye. Commissioner Phelps? Aye. Commissioner Dillingham? Aye. Commissioner Holder? Commissioner Mabry?
Next item on the agenda is the presentation of the Durant Hatchery renovation. It's gonna be Barry Bolton.
Is it on? Red light?
Now it is.
There we go.
Good morning. Hope everyone had a good holiday. Agenda item 11 is, as you described, Mr. Chairman, a brief update on efforts to renovate the Durant State Fish Hatchery. Some years ago, Fisheries Division identified several initiatives through a strategic planning effort. One was a recognition of a need to update aging infrastructure at our state hatcheries, fish hatcheries. And I would like to thank this commission and those before that have provided funding for this continuing effort. We feel like it's very important and one of our priorities in Fisheries Division. I'd like to ask Mr. Shane Lewis to come up. By way of introduction, Shane is the Assistant Hatchery Manager at the Durant State Fish Hatchery, and he loves public speaking. He told me that as we were preparing this. But Shane, more importantly, Shane comes from a construction background, and he does an incredible job of keeping both the engineers and the construction crews lined out. And I'm going to turn it over to Shane because he knows a heck of a lot more about it than I do.
This thing. Like Barry said, my name is Shane Lewis. I'm with the Durant State Fish Hatchery, and I'm the assistant manager there. Make sure I hit the right button. Am I not smart enough to? Oh, hey. Look at that. Let's try this again. Bingo. Like Barry said, I really like public speaking, so this is going to be fun. So, introductions. Like I said, I'm Shane. Here we have an overview of the Durant State Fish Hatchery. It was built in 1917. It's the second oldest hatchery in the state, the largest of the four that we have. This photo is circa 1940s. It's pretty much the earliest photo we have on record. And as you can see, there's ponds everywhere on roughly 300 acres of land there. Over the years, we've had multiple renovations, kind of streamlined our systems to make them where they were ponds that could be harvested at one time through a structure instead of just manpower out there with a seine trying to get what you could, and then the water stayed in the ponds. The hatchery consists of 51 ponds, roughly 60 acres that are in production, with two supply reservoirs, about a 60-acre and a 30-acre reservoir, with a supply canal that goes around the 60-acre reservoir. You can see in the upper right-hand corner, up here, is our what we call phase 3. That's roughly 32 ponds, the elongated ponds. That's not in operation at this time due to failing structures and inability to get water to them. And at this point now, there's, instead of 32 ponds, there's roughly 4 ponds total. We've used the levees that separated those ponds in our previous constructions, our previous projects. But we hope to someday maybe shift our funding and of renovations over to that phase 3 to increase our production. So, excuse me, how our hatchery provides for the anglers of Oklahoma. We do that in many ways. One is our sport fish production, Florida largemouth bass, which is one of our main focuses, and our channel catfish. Our farm pond program, which is for our privately owned ponds. The only cost to individuals there is that they have to have a valid fishing license, and they can get for that year, and they can get largemouth bass, bluegill, and catfish. And that program's really there for getting kids activated in fishing and get them that R3 initiative to get that initial start. Everybody loves to go catch a bluegill on a bobber. Then we also work with the close to home in the municipal ponds and lakes around Oklahoma City, Tulsa, those areas to give the inner city areas a good, safe place to fish. And then we also put trout in Blue River and the Lower Mountain Fork, and those are a combination of our federally provided, U.S. Fish and Wildlife provided trout and the commercially purchased trout that we get. So fish production at Durant, our main focus is the Florida largemouth bass. And we about 75% of what we do encompasses the bass program, and that's anywhere from stocking fry to fingerlings to sub-adults and adults. Our adults many times are 5 to 8 pound broodstock that are retired, it's no longer efficient for us to use those as spawning, so we will put them out into the lakes, and it's good PR for the local community to see that we are adding. It's instantly you see that there's a big fish added to that lake. Our ultimate goal is that right there. That's the current state record at 14 pounds, 13.7 ounces, and I'm not 100%, but I believe that's an F1 cross. So it has the goal of our program is maybe not necessarily to produce that new state record, but is to put enough fish into the system to add enough genetics into the system in hopes to get that right there. The other portion of our production involves our forage production. We maintain roughly 1,000 broodstock on hand, and those broodstock have to be fed. Bass are a predator species. They like live prey, so we produce koi, minnows. An offshoot of our close to home and our farm pond program, we'll have bluegill, our excess bluegill and hybrid bluegill we can feed to those fish. And we also maintain about 250 to 500 future brooders to continue our production through the years. So that's pretty much a rough background on the hatchery operation. So we're going to move into our renovations and improvements. So in 2009, we had a drought, and we were no longer able to get water from the river into our holding ponds. Created a pretty big problem. We were able to talk to the city of Durant, which shares our water source, the Blue River. They quit taking water in from it and used their local lake to supply the city with water, and we were able to fill our reservoir up. Crisis averted. We continue to be in production. So we talked with Garber Engineering. They came up with a very ambitious project, to say the least, with a very ambitious price tag on it. Through budget constraints and operational constraints, we broke it into 3 different sections. So I'm going to go over each one of those. 2014 and 15 was our water supply. We had to get water from the river into our reservoir, and we needed to keep up with our HACCP protocols, in which we keep ANS species out of our hatchery systems. 2016 was our reservoir intake, is getting water out of our reservoirs into our ponds, and getting our ponds, or that water, back into our reservoir, and just distributing throughout the system. And then our latest project was making our reservoir operate to its fullest capacity and be able to keep as much water in our reservoir as possible, and not have to go to the river and impact river usage as little as possible. So we'll go in 2014. Like I said, in 2014, when we started this, our main focus was, first of all, we have to have water. So we worked on a pump station. This is our old pump station that had, roughly 1,300 gallons per minute, maybe, that we could get to our reservoirs, which is a very minimum amount. We needed to get water to our reservoir. We needed to, in drought situations, then we also needed to get the electronics of those pumps because in the same 2009, we had the drought. 2012, we had a flood that was nearly covering the pumps and electronics on this system. And then our other part of the 2014 renovations was a power wash station, a disinfecting station. If we get an A&S species like the zebra mussels, the Didymo, in our system, there's a good chance they're going to get spread through the entire state. So we have to lead by example and follow those initiatives the best we can. Let's hope that this place, we've had a little issues with it. When Garver did our engineering, they came up with a video, just a nice little fly-in, gives you an overview of the entire hatchery, and it gives us a conceptual idea of what our new pump station was going to look like. But you can see that where we sit, our old pump station is right there right there next to that dam. They put it up so that it would be, be lower in the water when we're in drought conditions, but then all of our electronics would be high enough that in flood conditions. During the construction of this in 2014, the water was about a foot below that platform, and that's well below the 100-year flood stage. So all of our electronics are safe. We don't have to go in and pull pumps in a flood condition. This pump station is running about 8,000 gallons per minute now versus our old system that could run maybe 1,300 gallons per minute. And then this is our disinfecting station, which is in essence, a car wash station that gets the water hot enough and chemical additives to it to keep our equipment clean. So in 2016 and 17, we had our second project. It was to rehab the supply structures that were on our canal and on our reservoirs, and to construct new structures on our reservoir in order to isolate one side from the other. So in future projects, this one keyed up our systems so that we can continue to operate during construction of our final phase. And like I said, as I mentioned, we were able to keep in production through all three phases of our renovations, so we never missed a beat. It also added a new supply line just to help our hydraulic flows throughout the hatchery. Excuse me. And then our system is 100% essentially 100% self-contained. Any water we use out of our ponds is not sent out as an effluent back into the environment. It's sent back into our reservoirs, so we reuse our water. So the only time we have to go to the river is to resupply that reservoir because of evaporation. So here's our canal structure. I'd like to mention that if you look over here at this tree line, I'll be coming back to it in our final project, and you'll see a huge difference. This one was so low in the water that our reservoir wasn't used at its full capacity. Water was flowing back over into that structure, back to the river. So we were constantly having to pump water back into the system. So you can see we raised the walls on it, shored up the shoreline, cleared out some of the tree line and our fence line to start getting access. We also put an intake into our east reservoir. That intake allowed us that if the big reservoir is down, we can now continue operations with full water functions through our smaller reservoir. And in order to do that, we also put in some diversion structure. So the canal feeds the reservoirs. We can tell it go into the east reservoir or the west reservoir independently if we have to do maintenance or anything like that. And then, like I mentioned, the supply line going from what we call structure D in the east reservoir, it increased hydraulic flow, so that now we function almost 100% gravity flow. Once the water's in our reservoir, it flows to our ponds without pumping, without the use of electricity, which makes us pretty efficient. The return pump station, you can see they're outdated trash pumps. These pumps are designed for a 3-point hookup to flood wetlands, and they were altered to run an electric motor. And now we went to an efficient submersible, easy access, updated pumps that we can actually get serviced. So on to our final project, 2019, 2020. Now that we had water to the reservoirs, we could get water from the reservoirs into our ponds, and then back from the pond in the reservoir. Now we needed to be able to use our reservoir to its fullest potential. We had a canal that supplied the two different sides. It had silted in, had breaches in it from critters and from, trees, overgrowth. We were unable to maintain those levees like we should. So we came in and pretty much revamped our entire, west reservoir. So as you can see, there was a very limited access, on the left side there. That's the actual canal, and it was supposed to be 6 to 8 foot deep, and it was about 2 foot deep with about 6 foot of mud, the silt that had come in from the river, and it was doing its job. It deposited that silt in the canal. That way it didn't get into the reservoir, which would then supply our ponds. We kept that silt out of our ponds. You can see during construction here, they had pumped out the canal, made access easier, started grubbing all the tree line and stuff off of it. And we had a few mishaps. Time of the year, we was kind of wet. Ideally, we'd have liked to have started this in June, and we started it in November. So they had some issues with mud and access, but all in all, everything worked out. And where that excavator is sitting, this is the new canal. You can see it's fully sloped, compacted. We get good flow. We can drain that canal for any time if we need to do maintenance. And we came in and, like I said, we've got an inner and an outer levee that contain that canal. And then this is, you can see over here is that structure D, where now we are completely isolated on the two different reservoirs. And then, like I said, as I mentioned before, this is that canal structure. So I wanted you to notice the tree line that now is no longer there. The brushy inner levee has been completely cleaned up. We have access completely around our levees now, and it's to help deter two-legged and four-legged intruders. Before there was no way to keep tabs on that section of the hatchery, and it was a big, like I said, it was a 60-acre reservoir that we had no access to the west and north side of it. Like I said, we rip-wrapped the entire inner levee for the reservoir to keep from being back in the same situation we were. I want to say it was the 40s was the last time that anything was really done on the reservoirs and on that canal. So over the years, just slowly encroaching of tree lines and stuff like that just made it where they were no longer able to maintain those levees like they needed to, and they just got into disrepair. Here's the far corner of it, just kind of give you an overview of the hatchery. If there's any questions or comments, I'll take them at this time. Yes, sir.
This looks pristine, and I know moss and algae can be beneficial to the fish, but do you ever get inundated with algae or moss that we have to control it?
So in our reservoirs, the slope of those levees are at least at a 3-to-1, if not steeper, which helps prevent vegetation from growing.
That's good to know, 'cause I just redid mine 3-to-1.
Yeah, 3-to-1 is kind of the go-to. That there's enough slope to keep light from penetrating to get as much.
The flatter area, okay.
Mm-hmm. And then for algal growth, it's in our reservoirs, it's not really a big deal because it is such a big area.
Sure.
And we have multiple intakes. If it gets inundated in one section, we can move over to a different section of the reservoir to get it. Now our ponds, yes, we have constant issues with algae and vegetation in those because we have so much a nutrient load by feeding the fish that.
Now that you brought that up, grass carp, you hear good things, bad things. I know they can wipe a pond out. What's your thoughts on that?
If it's
And they don't eat stuff that like.
if it's the right species of vegetation
Which
and a limited number, then yes, they work. We sometimes will guide individuals to go the chemical route in the proper manner.
Sure.
To attack vegetation. But on to the next job. Like I said, if you're looking for an operator or a secondary supervisor, that one did a pretty good job on all these projects. She was right in the middle. We live on the hatchery, so she was in the middle of everything. And I had pictures of her in her princess dress, riding or sitting on top of a bulldozer or something.
So Shane, 5 million spent and 40 million to go. Is that about where
I knew you were going to ask. So over the course of those 3 projects, we're in the $6 million range. 6.7, yeah, 6.7, almost 7 million. To go into phase 3, if you look at it, like I said, it's 30 acres. 32 acres on phase three. It would be building an entire new hatchery, pretty much, is what we would do. And right now, our estimates are 25, 20. He asked, yeah, 27 million. Yeah, we're looking at,
Yeah, I was thinking it's actually close to 30.
yeah, we're between 25 and 30, and that's 2 years ago, I think is probably the last estimate, so it could be more than that. But it's more than just, it would be more than just the construction portion of it. It would also be the operational part of it as far as staffing, and I think that was part of the inclusion of that 25 to 30 million was, we have, that would be enough ponds for almost 4 more staff.
Yeah.
On our side. It's as big as any, that 32 acres is as big as any of the other 3 hatcheries that we have.
Right, no, it's huge, massive, if people haven't seen it. And then you mentioned trout, you all don't actually spawn and raise trout
No,
there.
sir, like I said, we hold trout in the cold winter months so that we don't have to travel to Arkansas. We'll hold some, or the commercial guys, that we have a contract with, will deliver them to us, and all we're doing is sustaining them on the hatchery for a week or 2 before they go to the river. But no, we do not do any
Yeah,
production.
just wanted to point that out, because
Yeah.
when commissioners hear about rulemaking proposals, especially with limiting trout, bag limits, creel limits, they need to understand that we pretty much just buy and stock trout nowadays, and that cost has gone up exponentially over the next 10 years. So I didn't want anybody to come away from this thinking we were raising trout there from spawn. That's not really easy to do in Oklahoma, especially down in southeast Oklahoma.
Well, it's hard enough to grow our Florida bass. You don't see orange groves in Oklahoma, and the Florida bass are meant to be in Florida. And we've, over the years since the early 90s, we've had our strain going here. They still come back 100% pure, but I think through natural selection and survivability, we've gotten a Florida strain that is now tolerant, more and more tolerant than they ever have been. Yes. They're a few less this year than they were when we started. Yes, and like I said, that's why we've got the new chain link fence, and then we have a predator fence on the north side that to help alleviate a little bit of that. They're still going to get on. We can keyhole them to one section and try to get them. Yes, they're cute, furry little critters that are neat to see swim around at the zoo, but they will destroy one of our ponds full of fish. They love a 9-inch catfish, 10,000 of them in a pond. Over the winter, if we don't control it, we will have 3 fish come out of that pond. So we have to keep an eye on them. We've got, I've probably got 30 traps out in the water, just in different areas trying to, I don't know, I've been there 12 years. I think we probably pulled a dozen or more off of that in one little section, just trying to keep them off of our ponds.
Kind of like wild hogs, can't eradicate them.
So all we're doing is trying to do, and we deter as much as possible. We try to keep as much activity going. It's helped with construction. I didn't have a photo of it, but at one time that 60-acre reservoir was drained down to a 2-foot deep puddle, and maybe a quarter of it was all that was there. So our bird and otter predation for the last year, not been a problem because we've had so much activity going on around there. But now we're back into the cycle of normal operations with less activity in those areas, and we're going to have to be more diligent to get rid of those suckers. Like I said, I would not be surprised if in good faith somebody thought it would be a good idea to put them in Blue River, and it backfired a little bit for the hatchery. But in all things, it's just part of the struggle. You know, if it wasn't those, it'd be something else. So we just keep we just keep tagging along. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
He always does. I mean, quite honestly, he does this as well as anybody we've got. A couple of thoughts I wanted to add on that phase 3.
Hey, Barry, you might come to the mic just because we're live for you. Thanks.
Yeah, Shane always does a great job. A couple of thoughts on phase 3. we've already talked about that, and if we decide to go that route, we'll be talking some more about that in future budgets, but that could also be phased, and almost certainly would be. But the other thing, we've been talking with the Wildlife Foundation, and talking about the possibilities of possibly working through some of the tribes and working for other funding sources on that. So stay tuned, and I'm planting a seed with you guys right now. Yeah, good question. I mean, and the cost of trout has just skyrocketed. The director mentioned that. And production costs, transportation costs, and I think there's not as many people buying as many trout. And we don't seem to be able to control that or impact that. So one of our, JD mentioned this, that we're talking about reducing that trout limit just to reduce costs. So. We really can't because of our hatcheries are all warm water hatcheries. And Shane mentioned that we can hold them in the wintertime and put a little size on them in some cases, but we can't hatch them. Throughout my career, there have been some discussions about putting a hatchery below a dam where you have cold water releases, but we never wanted to go down that road to really hatch and raise trout.
Broken bow or one of those.
Yeah. So those come from federal hatcheries and then from private hatcheries. Missouri, Crystal Lakes is where we get most of our fish, from Ava, Missouri. Yeah. It's just something we have to evaluate, Fisheries Division, you all, and the director, and we just got to figure out, what to do with it.
Might also point out, while we're on this subject, the importance of the Blue River. You may hear more and more about that as well, but, we often talk about the importance of our Blue River public fishing and hunting area upstream of Durant in the Tishmingo area, and, what an incredibly popular place. In fact, Matt, I think, saw one of the biggest influxes of people on any of our public areas that you're going to find down there on the Blue River over the course of 2020. And so obviously the Blue River is incredibly important there, but it's the water supply for this multi-million-dollar hatchery and all the fish that they're raising at Durant to stock across the state. So keep that in mind too, as we're in the midst of a project right now, sort of a joint project with the Chickasaws, Choctaws Water Resources Board, Secretary Wagner, looking at in-stream flows, environmental flow protection for the Blue River. And so, part of that equation is forever, and I can attest, being the former head of the Water Resources Board, the state has got a well designed system for allocating water to people that need to use water, but it often has ignored how much water we need to leave behind to take care of in-stream needs. And so Blue River, we've kind of launched a pilot project with the tribes and the Water Resources Board to take a look at in-stream flow needs up along the Blue River. And of course, the hatchery down at the terminal end of it is a big piece of that. This is also the town of Durant and a lot of that area surrounding the bustling, growing community of Durant. That's their water supply is the end of the Blue River, and then you've got places all in between as well. So just thought I'd point that out.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Shane. That's really good information. Looks like quite an improvement since the commission made a trip down there a year ago. Probably worthwhile to go back and take a look at that again.
Yeah, it doesn't even look like we'd recognize it from being down there a year ago.
Yeah, it just looked like a bad slough down there in some areas. So, it's good information. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item is discussion of appraisal and/or purchase of certain real property located in Harmon County and Beckham County. And would ask for a motion that we move into executive session. Second? There being a motion and a second for discussion. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Barwick? Commissioner Hughes? Commissioner Gaddis? Commissioner Zelf? Commissioner Dillingham? Commissioner Holder? Commissioner Mabry?
Aye.
Okay,
Amen.
because of COVID, I would ask if all of our folks that weren't asked to participate in this discussion would step out. We would retire to the executive session room, but Yeah, whenever you're ready.
If you would, please take your seats again. This time we'd need a motion to move back into open session. Motion and second. Discussion, being none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Barwick? Commissioner Hughes?
Aye.
Commissioner Gaddis? Commissioner Zelf? Commissioner Dillingham? Commissioner Holder? Commissioner Mabry?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to authorize the director to purchase or negotiate and purchase the properties we discussed in Beckham and Harmon counties, including the in-holding, especially considering the fact that we can use existing land that was bought with state money as the match, so we really won't have to come up with the 25% match. And that's being purchased at appraised value, and the in-holding if no less than 1,000, but based on the appraisal we've already looked at, that's not going to be an issue, it doesn't sound like.
Motion, second. Second? Okay, second. Discussion? Being another roll call, please.
Commissioner Barwick?
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes?
Aye.
Commissioner Gaddis? Commissioner Zelf? Commissioner Dillingham? Commissioner Holder? Commissioner Mabry?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next item is new business, discussion of any matter not known about or which could not have been reasonably foreseen 24 hours prior to the scheduled meeting.
We have no new business.
What's up?
We have no new business.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda will announce the date of the next regular commission meeting, which will be February 1, 2021 at 9 a.m. in Oklahoma City, ODWC headquarters. This time we adjourn the meeting.
Took my mask out there and washed yesterday, didn't get it back, here, been in rascals here.
Well, we always have some extras if you
Oh,
need
yeah, this
one.
is dope, I got this, it's fine, I stretched the elevator.
Oh, well,
No, we're good.
that may be what we put out for the public. We probably have some better ones.
Oh,
I
yeah,
bet the
come on.
game wardens have some
All right,
stashed
let's
up
get
there.
over the